Mr. Jeffrey Hawkins joins us now. He's the U.S. Consul General in Lagos. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning. Nice to be here. And can I say Eid Mubarak to all of your Muslim viewers as well?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, lots of Nigerians can relate with what you just talked about and the essence, the importance, the need for us to actually just move forward from there. But let's take that discussion a little further. This U.S.-Nigeria BiNational Commission, I think, was it 17 months? I think longer than that. But essentially, a flagship agreement between both countries, cooperation basis. At that time, I do remember that some key areas were highlighted in terms of what needed to be focused on, the benefits for that commission. Could you take us through that first?
Of course, yeah. You know, we have a really wide and deep relationship with Nigeria, and this U.S.-Nigeria BiNational Commission is really a reflection of the importance of the relationship. There's just a few countries on the continent with which we have agreements like that, and so the idea was to provide our leadership, the Nigerian leadership, the American leadership, with a formal forum to discuss really sort of some of the key issues, and among those were 5 primary areas, and we have working groups in each of those areas. And the first is in regional security. We also focus on transparency and democracy and governance. We focus on energy and investment. We focus on agriculture and food security, and we also focus on the Niger Delta. And I think those are all issues that are certainly ones that we care deeply about, and I think the Nigerian government cares deeply about, and the Nigerian people care deeply about.
So, any progress made in these areas of focus?
Of course. We have lots of engagement in all sorts of areas, and the BiNational Commission is really an opportunity for us to talk things through and to really hash things out at a senior level. There are concrete things that come out of this. For example, I think a lot of our work with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on corruption issues was a result of discussions there. But that's not the primary focus of this. The idea isn't to come up with agreements or communiques. The idea is really to talk through the issues, because the relationship there's lots of things going on, and there's lots of achievements that are being handled every day. But we needed a place where we could talk things through. And so the metric is not, how many agreements were signed. It's much more how much dialogue was there between the two parties.
And that can only make meaning when the average Nigerian gets to feel the impact of this commission. For instance, if you're a farmer and we talk about food security and agriculture, how can it impact on the nation when we talk about partnership between the two countries?
Well, I mean, it happens on different levels, and of course we focus on things like assistance, and one component of our large assistance to Nigeria is agricultural assistance, getting agricultural markets to products. We have the AGOA system that allows Nigerian products duty-free access to the U.S. market. There's also a policy element to this. In other words, it's important for governments, the Nigerian government, the American government, to get the right policies in place to promote agriculture. And this is a unique opportunity for our experts to talk about these issues, and then also for our senior leaders to do as well.
You've talked about some areas of cooperation, and you're focusing very much on building strong institutions within Nigeria. Someone would say, what exactly lies in it for the United States? I mean, for instance, if you help agricultural sector, what do you have to profit from it?
Well, I mean, we have so much at stake in this country. Nigeria is our second largest investment destination on the African continent. Nigeria is a regional leader. There are 1.5 million Nigerians living in the United States. There are tens of thousands of Americans living here. There's educational ties, there's cultural ties. Nigeria's success as a democracy, as a regional leader, as an economic powerhouse is very much tied to our success and vice versa on the continent. If Nigeria does well, American investors, Nigerian Americans, American and Nigerian students do well. If Nigeria doesn't do well, that bodes poorly for all of us.
Okay, now one other thing you mentioned, I mean, listening to the track yesterday was, you identified a major challenge, for Nigeria. It's definitely a problem you're also working to tackle. How much progress would you say you've made in that particular area in tackling the problem of corruption?
Well, there's a lot of ways that we come at that, and one of them is the frank dialogue that we have in the BiNational Commission on these issues. And as I mentioned, we do have a working group that's devoted primarily to issues of transparency, democracy, government, which are all related. We have some real focused assistance that works in that area. I mentioned the EFCC, and we do work closely with them on corruption issues. And if you pull the lens out a little wider, we also, of course, work with Nigerian law enforcement generally. So there's a great deal of cooperation with the police or the security services, with the NDLEA on drug issues, all of which is tied into the issue of corruption. If you've got good law enforcement going on, that's going to get at the root of that. I think we do about $3 million a year in assistance on the law enforcement area. Then if you bring the lens out...
$3 million, did you say?
That's right. Yeah.
Every year?
That's right.
It's helping law enforcement agencies in Nigeria?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
If you bring the lens out a little wider, so much of what we do impacts that, and whether it's our assistance in the health area or in education and all the rest, we are working to ensure that our assistance money is implemented in the best way possible, and so whether it's working with INEC on setting up good elections and making sure that government is responsible to the Nigerian people, whether it's working with civil society groups that monitor how the Nigerian government spends its budgets or how state governments spend their budgets, whether it's working with observers for elections. All of those things tie into the corruption piece. I mean, all of them are ways of helping Nigeria and more importantly, helping Nigeria and Nigeria's civil society in particular play the important watchdog role that they do. And the last thing I would just like to highlight as well, are the three of you and the important role that you all play, that the media plays in exposing corruption. As we were sitting in the waiting room to come in here, we were discussing this video that you all released of a police officer extorting a bribe from a Nigerian person. That role, the media role, is so huge, and that again is another area where the United States government is very interested in assisting our Nigerian partners.
But you also commended, including the civil society organizations, the last general elections. So you expect, of course, there will be expectations to build on that with the next elections.
Yes, absolutely.
How confident are we, from what you've seen, that we will improve on that?
Well, I think the general consensus was that the 2000 elections represented the will of the Nigerian people. That was the consensus among international observers, and most of the Nigerians that I've spoken to generally feel that that was a decent election. The United States government had a tremendous amount of we put a tremendous amount of effort into helping the Nigerian government ensure that that was a good election, and particularly working with INEC. And I think between the UK and the United States, we put something like $30 million into that election. So the preparations for that were very important, and then the thing went well. Moving forward, we're going to be looking at the 2015 elections as well very closely. It's a crucial moment for Nigeria. There's a lot of challenges. There are security challenges. There's challenges of corruption. The political scene has shifted quite a lot in the last few months, and it is absolutely vital for Nigerian interest, for our interest, and above all for the Nigerian people that this thing work well. And the United States will do everything that it can, both on the assistance side, on the part of quiet diplomacy behind the scenes, and above all working with civil society to ensure that these elections are good elections that reflect the will of the Nigerian